Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be flying from Lisbon to Toronto on TAP Air Portugal's Airbus A321neo LR. Word on the street is this single-aisle jet is actually redefining long-haul travel, that is, 8 hours across the Atlantic on a narrowbody. Is it really the game-changer everyone says it is, and could it really mark the end of Boeing's transatlantic era? Let's find out together in this video. We're starting our journey today in Terminal 1 of Lisbon's Humberto Delgado International Airport. Fun fact, Lisbon Airport is one of Europe's most capacity constrained. It's boxed in by the city, stuck with one usable runway, and heavily restricted by noise abatement curfews and environmentalist regulation. And so, until a replacement is built, we will have to stick it out with the likely scenario of using standalone bus gates for departure. All to say though, the terminal interior is relatively nice and renovated, with an array of shops and duty-free stops along the way to the non-Schengen gates. So here's our aircraft flying us out to Toronto this evening. It's a 4-year-old Airbus A321neo XLR with the registration provided below. Most of TAP's North American flights leave in the evening, so getting an actual jet bridge gate at the end of the terminal feels like winning the lottery. Normally, when you're flying on a narrowbody out of Lisbon, you're almost always guaranteed a bus ride to the plane. Also, something to note is we're flying TAP's discount economy fare. It's the cheapest tier with no guaranteed seat selection or checked bag, so snagging a window seat in 24F feels like a win. Now taking a quick look at TAP Air Portugal's economy seat on the A321LR, the cabin is in a through-3 layout with Recaro's CL3710 seats, about 17.8 inches wide with an adjustable headrest and bifold tray table. Each seat also features a 12-inch HD touchscreen, USB power, and a universal AC outlet. Legroom is 31 inches in standard economy. The recline is modest, but enough for a medium to long flight. Overall, a surprisingly full-featured setup for a long-haul configured narrowbody. Also provided is a pretty thick blanket, which is of great quality just by feeling it, as well as a pillow with one of those single-use scratchy covers. I didn't find the seat all that comfortable while sitting on the ground, and the fabric became a little irritable over a period of time. Another thing I didn't quite get was the non-installation of the Airbus XL space bins. I found TAP wasn't most diligent in identifying the need to gate check bags, as do some North American carriers before boarding, and much of the boarding was actually utilized in getting everyone's carry-ons to fit in the right place. Nonetheless, we were lucky enough and able to push back on time at our scheduled departure of 6:05 p.m. Not long after departure, the crew began serving dinner. Given our departure time of around 6 p.m., I appreciate the speedy meal service. 2 options were given here and also accessible through the onboard menu integrated within the IV system. One was a tortellini in Roma sauce and the other honey mustard chicken on saffron rice. My preferred choice of chicken ran out by the time when we reached my row, and I was given pasta without being handed a second option. In addition to the main course, my meal also came with a pre-packaged bedroll, a potato salad, as well as a caramel custard for dessert. I opted for Portuguese red wine and water to pair with my meal. All in all, while catering was just okay, the meal was actually pretty great, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. The lavatories on the 321neo are rather standard and unremarkable. Everything you need is there, including a sizable changing table as well as hand soap. And being on a 321, the overall space was a bit on the narrower side, and there were only 3 lavatories total to serve about 150 or so seats. Here's a quick look at the IFE system on board. Every seat gets a large touchscreen with on-demand movies, TV, music, games, and a detailed moving map, even an onboard menu. The library is surprisingly deep for a mid-size airline, well over 100 movies and loads of series. On this flight, I even had full seasons of big-name HBO hits, like The White Lotus and The Last of Us, which is seriously impressive. And so TAP introduced the Airbus A321neo LR in 2019, calling it critical to their expansion strategy. Its extended range lets TAP enter into longer North and South American routes, as well as emerging African markets, without needing a wide body. And with Lisbon Airport's heavily capacity-constrained status, not every long-haul route justifies a larger aircraft. That's where the A321neo LR shines, ideal for its long, thin capacity and routes that it serves, that are long distance but maybe lower in demand, giving TAP the flexibility to serve secondary international markets efficiently. Now, one thing worth calling out here is the economics behind TAP's pricing. Portugal has one of the lowest average wage levels in Western Europe, and from an airline economics perspective, that gives TAP a structurally lower cost base across labor, ground operations, and certain support services. That cost advantage flows directly into their fare structure. My one-way ticket today from Lisbon to Toronto, for example, came out to about 690 CAD or roughly 430 euros. This dynamic is what enables TAP's hybrid model, part full service, part value driven. You still get your full IFE, meals, and a traditional long-haul experience, but the fares remain far more competitive than most Western or even European airlines per se. And all of this ties neatly into TAP's fleet strategy. The Airbus A321neo LR is incredibly fuel efficient, burns significantly less fuel than a wide-body, and is perfectly sized for these long, thin transatlantic routes out of Portugal in terms of their cost per available seat kilometer. And so breakfast was served shortly thereafter. It really wasn't anything substantial, just a sandwich and a piece of chocolate cookie/cake of sorts. Another thing of note was I felt quite cramped throughout the entire flight and ultimately was not able to obtain a whole lot of shut-eye. Even getting out of my window seat and over 2 passengers was also pretty much a nightmare, and we had people crowd the single-aisle jet in line for the aft lavatory all flight long. So I rarely bothered to stand up and head back to the galley to see if there were any refreshments or extra drinks. Of the many highlights of this flight, the lack of space and freedom of movement mid-flight really wasn't an outstanding factor, though I was able to catch up on Season 3 of HBO's White Lotus, an incredibly funny series. Check out this very beautiful sunset as we commence our approach into Toronto's runway 24L. In conclusion, a solid flight out of TAP Air Portugal's A321neo LR is what I received tonight. It's a dependable product with a state-of-the-art entertainment selection, decent Wi-Fi, quality amenities, and a pretty tasty food service regarding our dinner. I just wish there was more of it. Where this flight lacks overall is its comfortability after the 5-hour mark or so, which is inherent to the design and structure of a long-haul transatlantic flight being operated by a single-aisle 321. The Neo is a great plane and all domestically, but it just leaves so much to be desired comparative to, let's say, a 330 or a Boeing 787. It really makes you appreciate the smaller add-ons that make long-haul, wide-body travel bearable. The extra bit of legroom, seat width, as well as the more direct aisle and galley access from your seat. As a customer, I can really appreciate these in-flight enhancements and wouldn't mind paying a bit more to experience this on a full-service transatlantic carrier. That being said, if you're balling on a budget, TAP Air Portugal is a perfect airline to fly from North America to Europe and beyond. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support for this channel.